Hi, my name is Keith Carson. I'm on the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, and I represent District 5, which is the cities of Albany, Berkeley, Piedmont, Emeryville, and roughly a third of Oakland, West Oakland, all the way up to Montclair and the San Antonio area. We're beginning the Terminator tours, which is the ability to go into the community and bring to you live individuals, people who are going to be impacted by the decisions that have just been made in Sacramento. We know that there's a $26 billion deficit that the state of California is closing, but they're closing that on the backs of us in the community. Our Terminator tour will begin in West Oakland at the Scotlan Youth and Family Center. It is a center that provides a multitude of services to people who live in the West Oakland area, only as an example of so many programs that are out there that are going to be negatively impacted by the decisions that are being made in Sacramento by the governor and the legislature. The Scotlan Youth and Family Center provides counseling. It provides the ability for people to get job training. It provides housing for individuals. It gives people hope. And for many, it has turned their lives around. One such young lady will be viewed in our video on the Terminator tour. She's a person who has totally turned her life around, has not only hope, but has direction. And you will hear from her as one of the first stops on our Terminator tour.
My name is Ortiz-Macey, but I'm known as T, and I'm working a couple of different places right now. I'm currently a summer intern for Beyond Emancipation. I work on the Youth Adult Partnership Board with Alameda County Social Services, and I work for Oakland PIC as a Youth Outreach Specialist. And my newest job I'm very, very honored to have is I'm working with Missy as a peer educator and I'm as a peer mentor and public educator, so I'm really excited about that. I was a youth, much like a lot of the youth out here in the city of Oakland, who my background was more, I was out of the foster care system, so I had a lot of bad experiences with the foster care system, in and out of foster care, AWOL, so on and so forth. I was brought to the Scotlan Center through a lady I met at the assessment center when I was going to be replaced. And so the lady brought me here, and I met with a youth advocate here, and that's how it all began.
From our observation when she arrived here, T was a very typical foster care raised, what we call state raised, street youth. She had attitude. She wasn't interested in our programs. She certainly wasn't interested in anything she perceived as therapy. She was a tough nut to crack. She is the kind of youth that we specialize in here at the center. Among the programs that we have, they're set up for youth. They're called at-risk youth, which is a nice way to say that they're the toughest youth to serve. There's no specific thing wrong with them necessarily. It's just the immersion in poverty, survival, existence, street life, peer pressure, criminality, and other things that surround them. They're surrounded with dysfunctionality. And this is the type of youth that we get. We call them euphemistically at-risk youth.
When I met with the advocate, at first, when I first walked in and I sat down, it was like an aquarium and a couch, and I was like, therapy. But that's not really what it ended up to be. When I sat down with the youth advocate, she was way more different than anybody from any type of organizations or services I've ever talked to. First, she came at me on a real level as far as individual to individual, not from someone who has privilege and, you know, you're trying to get part of my services or anything of that sort, but more as an individual, like, what's going on with you, what can I help you with, so on and so forth. I told the person, I was like, well, you know, I know you're only going to help me if I'm staying in my placement, and I'm not going to stay. And the youth advocate was actually, she was like, no, well, we'll work with you whether or not you're in your placement. You know, we just want to make sure you're okay. And just wanting somebody taking that special interest in me and checking on me and just saying that whether or not I'm in placement meant something to me. So it really first started out with her just asking me to call her once a week, whether or not I was in placement wherever I was at. So at first, you know, sporadically, every now and then I call her, but then it really got where I felt like she really was waiting on my call. So I'd start calling, and it continued from there. My first initial meeting with the Scotlan Center, like I said, was with the youth advocate, but I believe I was part of the sexually exploited minors program that was going on here at the Scotlan Center, in this exact room, as a matter of fact, where they had youth come and learn more about things dealing with sexual exploitation. We also did a group reading of a book called Too Perfect for Words. And so I got to start meeting people, other youth that were involved with services here at Scotland. And it was interesting because I was able to come whether or not I was in placement. So did that. Also, youth advocate, basically, like I said, I was in the foster care system, didn't know much about myself. I didn't know where I was born, anything. So the youth advocate first helped me establish a sense of me, of who I was and what I was and where I want to go. And so how she did that was assisted me in finding my birthplace, finding out how to get my birth certificate, taking me to go get my birth certificate, then taking me to go get a social security card, things of that sort. And then initially, in the end, getting me all documents needed, social security card, birth certificate, ID, backup copies, I mean everything that I would need to know and go further in my life. Didn't know nothing about my background. I knew my parents' names. I didn't know their birthdays. I didn't know anything of that sort. And so the advocate really took the time to hook up with the people in the social services and figure out how they can do some type of case. So she ended up doing some case management too with a case manager here at Scotland. So I was working both with the youth advocate and the case manager. And they both really assisted me in finding out who I was. And that was just the basis of it, you know, finding out where I was born, and I had a legal document that stated my information. And it seemed so obvious to people in society that, oh, people should know that. But being a young adult, I'm not even a young adult at that time, I was just a youngster basically, and didn't have no one to steer me in the right directions because I was in the foster care system and had so many bad and traumatizing experiences that I had no one to direct me into how to live my life or how to even find out who I was. So the advocate and the case manager from Scotland Center, by then helping me get my birth certificate and get my ID and make me feel like I'm really a person just as equal as anyone else, that really began the initial me taking steps to find more potential in myself. Previously, 2 years, when I was 14, my sister was murdered. And she was the only person I knew growing up in the foster care system, the only person that was like my mother. So when she was killed, I just felt so alone. I felt like a street soldier in so many ways, that the streets was all I had, and as long as I'm in the streets, that I'm safe and I'm home. And so for me to go about the logistic way of finding my documentation and things of that sort, it made me feel accounted for.